This is a presentation of the City of Oxnard 2020 General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Reports. The General Plan Annual Progress Report is primarily a text-based report without any standard format dictated by the state. However, it is intended to generally cover the city's status of implementing the general plan. The Housing Element Annual Progress Report is prepared using standardized spreadsheet-based forms provided by the State Department of Housing and Community Development and provides a detailed status of housing development in the city during the calendar year. Government Code Section 65400 mandates that both of these reports be prepared and presented to the local legislative body. Following its presentation to the local legislative body, both of these reports must be submitted to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and the State Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st of each year. The purpose of these two reports is to provide a status update to the public and the council on the general plan, to describe implementation progress, and to document progress on the city's progress toward meeting its regional housing needs allocation, ARENA. As an overview, the general plan is the city's official policy that sets out a vision to guide future development in the city. The city is required to keep the general plan current and internally consistent, and all city actions affecting physical development or the use of land must implement and be found consistent with the general plan. Since the adoption of the 2030 general plan in 2011, there have been 14 general plan amendments. The most recent amendment was approved in 2020 for the Rio Urbana project, which included 167 units and 15,000 square feet of office space. As this project included an annexation, it is currently with LAFCO for approval. As of December 31st, 2020, there were 4 general plan amendments in process. 3 project-specific amendments and 1 citywide amendment to update the city's general plan housing element. In 2020, there were 3 ordinance text amendments approved, with 1 pending as of December 31st. The first ordinance text amendment that was approved in 2020 was for the Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance, which regulates ADUs in the non-coastal zones. These revisions adopted on July 21st, 2020, were to facilitate the development of ADUs and meet new requirements in state law that went into effect on January 1st of 2020. Some of the mandatory changes required by state law included allowances for junior ADUs, reduced parking requirements, reduced permitting timeline of 60 days, removal of owner occupancy requirements, and a prohibition on short-term rentals in ADUs. The second ordinance approved in 2020 was for short-term rentals and regulated or established permitting requirements and regulatory standards for short-term rentals in the coastal and non-coastal zones. The purpose of the ordinance was to enact a comprehensive set of operating requirements and performance standards for short-term rentals to mitigate their effects on neighborhoods. This includes separation requirements and limits on the number that can operate in a certain neighborhood. After collecting public input, the city began the formal approval process in 2019, and on October 6, 2020, the final ordinance was approved by the Oxnard City Council, then accepted by the Coastal Commission on December 10th of 2020, with the ordinance finally going into effect on December 17th of 2020. Also in 2020, the city processed a series of ordinance amendments related to cannabis operations in the city. These included amendments to incorporate cannabis activities in the industrial zones and correct typographical errors in the code, and permits chapter of the Oxnard zoning code, as well as establish fines for violations of commercial cannabis business regulations. Lastly, the wireless facilities ordinance was pending as of December 31st of 2020. And throughout the year, the city continued the process of working towards updating the zoning code and coastal zoning code with regards to permitting, processing, and approving wireless communication applications in the city. The overall wireless code update is expected to be completed in 2022. Throughout 2020, the city continued to process the local coastal plan update. And on December 8th of 2020, staff presented a summary of the local coastal program, sea level rise, and management adaptation strategies to the Housing and Economic Development Committee. The presentation summarized the city's 4 planning areas and the draft long-term adaptation strategies that, if acceptable, will inform the public or the policy creation and ultimately be folded into the LCP update as sea level rise management adaptation policy. Also in 2020, the city continued to process the Climate Action Plan, or Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And in March of 2020, the city entered into a contract with ESA for the preparation of the city's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which is necessary to help Oxnard meet California's goals for reducing emissions of greenhouse gases as legally mandated and adapt to the anticipated effects of climate change. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan will have 2 primary objectives. The first is to reduce GHG emissions through the implementation of reduction measures to meet or exceed reduction targets mandated by the state, and to enhance the community's resilience to changing climate by addressing the vulnerabilities and risks that are expected to occur as a result of those impacts. In 2020, city staff and the Sun collected data to inform the preparation of the document, and the city is now embarking on the community engagement portion of the work. In 2020, the city saw a significant increase in the amount of development in the downtown area as a result of the updated code, which is adopted in July 31st of 2019. As a result of this updated code in 2020, the city received or approved 9 applications for primarily residential mixed-use developments, proposing a total of 497 units. The two applications which were approved in 2020 allow for 111 residential units and commercial space. One of the projects was the Navigation Center project, which consisted of 56 permanent supportive housing units and a 13,000 square foot homeless shelter. The creation of the Navigation Center shelter was a long-term goal identified in the city's general plan, and it is anticipated that development interest in downtown will continue to increase through 2021, with many of the currently pending projects to be approved in 2021, and several are expected to begin construction in 2021 as well. On June 16, 2020, City Council approved a development agreement between the City of Oxnard and the Sakioka Farms developer, as well as a tentative tract map which subdivided the 430-acre area within the Sakioka Business Park specific plan into 129 lots, which will allow for new roads, sidewalks, stormwater management, landscape, and associated utilities. As a result of these approvals, two major developments were approved in the Sakioka development area in 2020. The first was for the approval of a 1.5 million square foot multi-story e-commerce building and distribution center, and the second was for a 576,000 square foot cold storage and fruit processing facility. Both of these projects further the goals of the general plan that aim to promote economic development through job creation and cold storage projects to support the agricultural areas in the city. Permitting activity for accessory dwelling units has increased significantly in 2020. State law revisions in 2017 and 2019 led to revisions to the development standards for these units in 2019 and 2020. The ordinance amendments in compliance with state law made it easier to obtain permits for ADUs by reducing fees and parking requirements, allowing for multiple ADUs on each lot, and creating an expedited process for converting existing permitted space, such as a garage or detached accessory structure, into an accessory dwelling unit. The number of ADUs permitted in 2020 was more than double the number of permits issued in 2019. In 2020, 123 ADUs received planning permit approvals, 111 were submitted for a construction plan review, 27 were issued a building permit, and 9 were constructed and occupied. While the number of ADUs constructed and occupied remains low, as the substantial number of ADUs granted planning entitlements trickle down, it is anticipated that the number of ADUs coming online will increase significantly in the coming years. As shown in the table, planning entitlements were granted for a total of 235 residential units in 2020. Accessory dwelling units made up 123 of these units, with the remaining units resulting from 2 mixed-use apartment projects in the downtown area and a single-family dwelling in the coastal area. In addition to the planning entitlements, building permits were issued for 363 residential units in 2020. Of these units, 299 were located within the Wagon Wheel development. The remainder were located throughout the city and included 28 accessory dwelling units and 36 single-family dwellings. Certificates of occupancy was granted for a total of 221 dwellings in 2020. In the table, the current table shows the city's progress toward meeting its regional housing needs allocation. The table shows development activity by affordability category as compared against the assigned arena targets for the current housing element cycle. A total of 7,301 dwelling units were allocated to the city of Oxnard for the current housing cycle. In 2020, 363 units were issued building permits, of which approximately 15% of the building permits issued in 2020 met the criteria for placement in the lower income and moderate income household categories, while the remaining dwelling units, or 85%, were categorized as dwellings affordable to above moderate households. This general plan annual progress report and housing element annual progress report have been prepared in compliance with Government Code Section 65400 and has been presented to the Oxnard City Council at a public meeting and will be submitted to the Office of Planning and Research and the State Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st. Staff recommends that the City Council receive and file the City of Oxnard 2020 General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Reports.